So you're China. You're constantly on the verge of war with the West, you don't have many friends, and right now you're in the middle of a really bad couple of years. COVID lockdowns, bank runs, a real estate crisis, an energy crisis, America. All of that is weighing down your economy. But there's also one other problem you're facing that not many people think about: oil. See, just like America's love affair with the black gold, you need oil to keep the lights on in your empire. In fact, you desperately need oil more than America ever has. You're not just bigger than America, you also consume more energy than any other country on the planet. You consume more oil than any other country on the planet, second only to America. Oil powers everything: your military, your factories, all the construction you've been building. It fuels your peasants' daily lives. If your oil supply got cut off for whatever reason, it could mean literal collapse. Just look at how much Europe is panicking right now because Putin shut off their oil. And the same goes for America. That's why America has already gone to great lengths to secure their oil.
At this hour, American and coalition forces,
in support of an international effort
to disarm Iraq, to free its people.
I want the American people to know that the use of force is not our first choice, and it's not a choice that I make lightly.
The Gulf War, the 2002 Venezuelan coup, the execution of Muammar Gaddafi, all of that was related to America's unquenchable thirst for oil. And as China, you're 100% down to do the exact same thing. But there's just one problem. In America's case, they can just invade or overthrow any country they want to secure the resources they need. Want bananas? Stage a coup in Guatemala. Want copper? Overthrow a democratically elected president in Chile. Want oil? Invade Iraq.
There's no question that the presence of petroleum has sparked great power involvement.
That's because America can get away with it. They run NATO, they have the strongest military, they have the most influence, they have the most votes in the UN. They control the narrative of what's right and what's wrong. That's why when they invade a country, they don't have to worry about annoying things like sanctions or global outcry. But you're not America, you are China, and you do not have that luxury. For one, you don't have the money. Invading Iraq costs America over $2 trillion, and invading Afghanistan costs America another $2 trillion. And number two, you do not control the narrative. You invade one insignificant country and boom, suddenly the whole world will be up in arms about it. So instead, you have to go about your invasions a little bit more creatively. You want to save money and avoid international backlash, while still getting the resources you desperately need to keep things in your dystopia running smoothly. And the best way to do this is through debts. And right now, one of the countries you're looking to enslave in debt is Iraq. And yes, just like America, this is all about oil. Except America had to resort to violent warfare. For you, you'll just have to stick with financial warfare. Stay dangerous, and this is China's thirst for oil.
China's massive fleet of coal power plants to produce 12% less power and able to make it before.
Right now, China has been in the middle of one of the worst droughts and heat waves in history. The heat and lack of rain is destroying food crops, affecting animals, and making life in the hottest provinces harder than ever. But that's not all, because the drought has also dried up 66 rivers across China, which is a problem when some Chinese provinces get up to 80% of their electricity from hydropower. Add this to the fact that people are using air conditioners more than ever because of the heat wave, and you're faced with a pretty serious problem. There is not enough electricity to meet demand. Things have gotten so bad that you've even started rationing electricity. The iconic Shanghai skyline had to be plunged into darkness. Offices were using giant blocks of ice to cool down buildings, where air conditioning units had to be turned off. And in the Sichuan province, factories in 19 cities had to stop their operations to save electricity. Long story short, combine 4 years of really bad luck with a series of unfortunate yet mostly preventable events, and you had a really bad energy crunch. And the people were pissed, and rightfully so. Businesses were already suffering from the COVID lockdowns, and now factories had to be shut up because there wasn't enough electricity. Add to that the growing tension between China and America, and you, China, are backed into a position where you're gonna have to find a reliable source of energy fast. Because if America ever decides to go on the offensive, a heat wave and a little energy rationing are gonna be the least of your worries.
In China, authorities are battling one of the worst droughts seen in more than 50 years.
In China said they have never seen severe power rationing and drought like this.
China has warned that its fall harvest is under threat,
leaving thousands of Chinese citizens in need of government support.
even before the drought, China wasn't exactly energy independent. You're responsible for 13% of the world's oil consumption, second only to America. And almost all of that oil is imported. Right now, you get most of your oil from the same place everyone else does, Saudi Arabia. Oil from Saudi Arabia accounts for 17% of China's imported supply, with Russia not far behind at 15%. But here's the problem with those two sources. Saudi Arabia is loyal to America, at least for the time being. China is working hard to break that loyalty, so make sure you subscribe to learn how in the future video on this. But because Saudi Arabia is loyal to America currently, if America decides to slap you with sanctions or go to war, almost a fifth of your imported oil supply would probably disappear into thin air. That's already enough to cause a crisis. And Russia? Although you guys are buddy-buddies, Putin has been going off the rails lately with the invasion and all. There are also rumors he's sick and not healthy. The US also really wants to take him out, which could mean regime change may be on the horizon. So you can keep getting oil from Russia, but it's best not to be too dependent on them. Add that to the fact that most of your imported oil has to be shipped through channels controlled by the US Navy, and you're pretty much left at America's mercy when it comes to your oil supply. So you're not in a very advantageous position right now. So if you're gonna make sure China never runs out of oil or electricity again, if you're gonna make sure the lights always stay on in your empire, you're gonna have to diversify your oil supply. And the best way to do that is to find an oil-rich country that is not too friendly with America that you can manipulate into doing exactly what you want. Enter Iraq. For the past 2 decades, Iraq has been ravaged by violence and war. First, America invaded in 2003, which led to years of fighting, bombings, death, and ruin. Then came the extremists and their particular brand of destruction. But beneath the rubble and ruined cities lies some of the biggest oil reserves in the world. By some estimates, Iraq hosts 12% of all the world's known oil reserves. If that oil could be translated into money in the bank, Iraq would be one of the wealthiest countries in the Middle East, if not the entire world. So no wonder America was so obsessed over Iraq. Unfortunately for Iraq, oil in the ground doesn't easily translate into money in the bank. And after years of fighting wars and terrorism, Iraq's government doesn't exactly have the billions needed to extract and refine their oil. It needs some outside help, some outside funding. And for years, America was the one that offered them that help. See, while America invaded Iraq, they got to pick and choose the companies to mine and refine the country's oil. But then in 2020, Iraq's parliament firmly voted to expel American troops from the country. Apparently, millions of deaths, war crimes, and lies have finally made the Iraqi people mad enough to kick the Americans out. That, along with President Joe Biden announcing American troops would be withdrawing from Iraq in 2021, meant the country was left with a power and money vacuum. 20 years of war can be pretty destructive and expensive, and the Iraqi government says it needs around $88 billion to start rebuilding the country. The problem is there aren't many countries out there with that kind of money to lend to Iraq, especially when America isn't an option anymore. But luckily, Iraq's situation presents you as China with the perfect opportunity. You need a reliable source of oil, and Iraq has more than enough oil to go around. Iraq needs money to rebuild its cities, and you'd be happy to hand over as many billions as they need in exchange for maybe some oil. In Iraq's eyes, you're the perfect partner. You're offering them money with very few strings attached, and you don't have any history or bad blood with the government. You're offering Iraq a clean slate, and they're offering you their oil. So in 2019, China announces the Oil for Construction program. As part of the program, you promise Iraq $10.5 billion to build 8,000 schools, an airport, and a brand new modern Iraqi city. And in exchange, all Iraq has to do is give you oil. But here's where things get even sweeter. Because Iraq can't build all those oil refineries and infrastructure on its own, you get to offer them some help. Out of the goodness of your heart, of course. So Chinese companies are building Iraq's oil refineries. They're building their schools, roads, cities, airports. It all sounds so noble, right? China is helping Iraq get back on its feet after the evil Americans left them in the dust. But that's until you follow the money. See, China isn't just giving Iraq money. No, China is giving Iraq a loan. A $10 billion loan to start rebuilding the country. Where does that $10 billion loan go? Iraq gets that money and then sends that $10 billion right back to Chinese companies to build that infrastructure. So the money started with the Chinese government, then it went to Iraq, then it quickly went back into the pockets of Chinese companies ultimately controlled by the Chinese government. And what is Iraq left with? $10 billion in debts that they have to pay back with interest. But that's not all. Iraq then has to sell China oil, and then Iraq has to use the money it made from that sale to pay back its loan to China. Oh, and the guys mining and refining the oil, they're also Chinese. So when you look at it this way, you gotta admit, that's pretty genius. Now that's what we call
the art of the deal.
The art of the deal.
And here's the kicker. Even if Iraq actually manages to pay back all that money, it's gonna spend at least the next decade in your debts. And hence, poor countries are never able to pay back this kind of debts. That's why practically every poor country is at risk of a debt crisis right now. And during this time while Iraq is in debts, you can fill up Iraq's business sector and oil industry with all your top contractors, mines, and firms. So even if that loan is eventually paid off, you would have infiltrated Iraq's economy so well that they wouldn't be able to survive without your companies. The country would be completely reliant on your loans and your infrastructure to keep things running. And in return, you'll have an almost endless supply of oil that America can't touch. America spent over $2 trillion trying to colonize Iraq. But China, all China had to do was get Iraq to sign the dotted line. What China is doing to Iraq right now has been what America has been doing to the rest of the world for decades now. See, contrary to popular belief, war is usually the last resort for America. Their first choice is to shackle countries in debt to make them their slaves. And they've done a very good job at it. Take a look around you. America and the West have all the wealth and power, and yet they produce nothing. America and Europe don't produce anything? No, Asia, Africa, and South America do all the hard labor for them. Why? Because Asia, Africa, and South America have become America's slaves. But not slaves bound by whips and chains, but through a new form of slavery, financial slavery. See, after researching all the videos for this channel over the past few years, I started to notice the startling pattern of financial slavery. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized that the most powerful corporations and governments around the world are literally only successful because of this slavery. Just look at Apple. Apple would not make any money, they would be unprofitable if they didn't have a de facto slave labor force in China making their iPhones for them, with suicide nets and all. This is the fundamental secret that the most powerful institutions around the world use to become successful. And it used to be that financial slavery was only reserved for these powerful governments and multinational corporations. But the great thing is, thanks to modern technology, you too can now take advantage of the same exact secret to become rich and powerful as well, without being as evil as them. And I expose all of this in my new masterclass called Financial Slavery Masterclass. 20 plus lessons, all narrated by me, in the same addictive documentary style you've come to love. You're gonna learn how the world is the way it is, how we got here, and most importantly, how to take advantage of the same secret to gain more wealth and power for yourself. There has never been a course made like this. I've spent the last 6 months perfecting this and you are gonna love it. It's perhaps my greatest body of work yet. And on top of that, I wanted this masterclass to be a chance for you to financially benefit right away too. So on top of the life-changing stuff you're gonna learn, by enrolling, you'll also be able to earn around $100 for every person you refer to the masterclass. This is just like Andrew Tate's legendary affiliate program, where we have step-by-step lessons and resources on how you can promote this masterclass by posting TikTok clips of my videos. But instead of just getting $25 per sign up like Tate's program, you're gonna get 4 times that at around $100. So scroll down and click the link below to watch the first lesson of this masterclass for free. You will not regret it. Scroll down, click the link below, and buy now. This is honestly a pretty genius move on China's part, so I respect their ability to scheme. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you're new here, this is the channel you go to learn everything that they wouldn't teach you in school. We make documentaries just like this one every single week for free on money, power, war, and crime just like this one. So if you enjoyed this video, click that subscribe button below. You can also follow me on Instagram at JakeTran, but that's gonna wrap it up. Thanks for being part of the Watch to the End Club. Stay dangerous out there, and I will see you guys in the next one.